Today's episode of the Behind the Mic podcast is brought to you by Mental Minute Success Coaching. Do you want to improve and accomplish more in life? Do you want to gain clarity and focus? Well, Mental Minute Success Coaching designs a life, performance, and clear pathways that strengthen emotional skills, boost motivation, and promotes real change for accomplishing your goals. So why wait? Make every minute count by visiting mentalminutes.com now to invest in your success. Mental Minute Success Coaching is a custom creative program that meets all individual needs. Your social, emotional, academic, athletic, and performance life will rise to new heights and change your pattern of success in life forever. Get started now at mentalminutes.com and invest in your success. That's mentalminutes.com. Lot to get into today, busy world of sports. We're going to touch on Joe Flacco being traded from Baltimore to the Denver Broncos. What is John Elway and company thinking? I'll talk about that one in just a second. The Genesis Open here from Los Angeles and specifically in Pacific Palisades at the Genesis Open is rained out again today. Matt Kuchar, though, is the big story. We'll discuss that one as well as one of his former caddies is not too happy with him at the moment. We'll also get into opening week for the Alliance of American Football. Pretty good draw. Week 1 in the books. Lot of ties, as you know, to the NFL. A lot of faces out there during those Week 1 games, especially the kickoff game in San Antonio. I have to get actually used to saying that instead of kickoff, just the initial snap. It's a little bit hard to get used to. I don't know if I'm crazy about the non-kickoff. I'll talk about that coming up in just a little bit. So we got a whole host of topics to get into. Let me start, though, with Joe Flacco being traded yesterday to the Denver Broncos. John Elway has his handprints all over this one. And look, if you look at this objectively, I don't believe you can truly say that Joe Flacco still has a lot of great years left as an elite quarterback in the NFL. And I've heard this argument here for the past 24 hours or so about, well, he's a former Super Bowl MVP. Yeah, back in 2012. It's been a little bit of time here. I don't believe that a Super Bowl MVP, very similar now to a Super Bowl winning head coach, I don't believe it holds the same value as maybe as it once did. For example, take a look at Mike Tomlin as the head coach currently of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Been a long time since he's won a Super Bowl. That has kind of grown old there in Pittsburgh, and the fans are starting to get a little restless. You can go through other examples as well. John Harbaugh, there was a bit of in Baltimore this year. We know before he was able to get everything cleared out with Steve Buscemi and company in the front office, before they got to a contract extension, there was some uncertainty whether or not he would come back in 2019. He won a Super Bowl with them, but again, some uncertainty about the performance as of late. It goes to question, do you still have it? Have you been able to evolve with the NFL? Mike McCarthy with the Green Bay Packers won a Super Bowl in 2010. Out the door here in 2018. It doesn't last forever anymore. It did at one point. If you win a Super Bowl, you can coach a million years in the NFL. I don't know if that's the case anymore. If you win a Super Bowl, that's great, but if years go by and you don't evolve your coaching style to go along with the rest of the league and everyone else starts to pass you by, you're going to be passed on by your team. So I think if you take that comparison of the head coaching success, winning a Super Bowl, but then having a long drought since then, I think it also goes with the quarterback position. And Joe Flacco comes to mind obviously right away. Super Bowl in 2012, has not really done much at all since. Not only have they missed the postseason a bunch of years since then, the Ravens, but his regular season stats have not been that great either. Very surprised to see this deal go down. I don't think it really helps the Denver Broncos and what they're trying to achieve. Yeah, they're going after a quarterback who's had success in the past. They're trying to chase that down. It was a unique opportunity when they were able to acquire Peyton Manning when he was a free agent. After the neck surgeries, after leaving Indianapolis, it was a very rare type of opportunity. They were able to get him. They caught lightning in a bottle. They built a team around him, as we know, the great defense, Von Miller and company. They had Wade Phillips there as the defensive coordinator. They went to a Super Bowl. They lost one. They went to a second. They won that one. But you cannot keep going back to the well and trying to find quarterbacks who had success in the past and try and think that they're going to be able to emulate that success here and somewhat resurrect it. The Baltimore Ravens, if they felt they had anything left in Joe Flacco, he would still be on the Baltimore Ravens roster. They've decided to go with Lamar Jackson here full time. I think Lamar Jackson's going to be a good quarterback. Is Lamar Jackson ready for primetime football yet? I don't think so. I think he's a ways away. But focusing specifically on Joe Flacco and what he now means as a Denver Bronco to that team, they've gone through, since Peyton Manning, Paxton Lynch, Trevor Siemian, Brock Osweiler, Case Keenum in 2018. Has not worked out for all these different guys. Case Keenum, they tried to catch lightning in a bottle, trying to emulate his success, trying to duplicate what he did in 2017 with the Minnesota Vikings. Was unsuccessful. He is what he is. I don't think we're going to see a reincarnation of Case Keenum wherever he may go now. And that's the next question. Where does Case Keenum now go with Joe Flacco coming into Denver? The Broncos are trying to hit the let's fast forward button and let's try and make this happen as soon as possible as far as getting back to success. Remember, Super Bowl 50 now, that's 3 years ago. This team has struggled. They've gone through the worst stretch, actually, in team history as far as missing the postseason since their victory in Super Bowl 50. They're trying to get back to the winning ways. You've heard this continuously about John Elway over the past several years since he's taken over at the helm in the front office with the Denver Broncos, is that he's very impatient. He's looking to try and get things done as soon as possible. He's trying to win. Everyone's trying to win. But he's very impatient. And I just wonder how much longer that's going to last, and especially now with Joe Flacco, if he starts in 2019, by all indications he will now, will they be able to get him right in time? Will they be able to get something still out of Joe Flacco? Do they think he still has something left in the tank? Clearly they do. They gave up a 4th-round pick for him. For Baltimore, sure. Why not? If you think he doesn't have anything left, go ahead. If you find a suitor like they did here with Denver, trade him away, 4th-round pick, I think that's a no-brainer for the Ravens. But for the Broncos to take on Joe Flacco at this point in time, I just don't see it. You can make the case Eli Manning has had a better statistical career than Joe Flacco. And look, well, he did it twice. He did it twice in the Super Bowl. He did it twice in the playoffs for that Giants team. Joe Flacco just one time. Just one postseason run. Outside of 2012, hasn't been able to put together the numbers since then, put together the production on the field that you need to have that type of play in the NFL. Now, I get it. You need an elite quarterback in the NFL. You need to have the franchise quarterback. Are they going to draft a quarterback now? I think that's also the next question for the Broncos. Do they potentially go after and draft somebody coming up? Or do they just roll here with Joe Flacco? I think they just roll here with Joe Flacco. I think Case Keenum may stay put. I think he may stay in Denver and may be the backup. I could see it playing out along those terms. Expectations will be high now in Denver for 2019. Not necessarily externally, the big picture macro look around the NFL, but internally in Denver, expectations will be high, starting in the front office. And I believe that the ownership in Denver, the Bolin family, is 100% behind John Elway. And they clearly have given him all the reins to pull the trigger on all these type of moves. Drafting players, negotiating contracts. They have 100% faith in him. They've put 100% of the backing on John Elway to get this done. and they're willing to roll with the ramifications of some of these risky moves. I truly believe that. If it doesn't work out with Joe Flacco, I think they go back to the drawing board, and I think John Elway is fine. He is not going to lose his job because of some of these moves he's making. I cannot see that happening. It's a trial and error type of situation here, and the ownership in Denver is willing to go down. They have been willing to go down that route, and I believe they will continue to be willing to go down that route. John Elway, even if it doesn't work out with this move with Joe Flacco, even if he doesn't revert back to his old self where he puts together something remotely close to the ultimate high success he's had in this league, I think it'll be business as usual for the Denver Broncos going forward. But I do believe it's a mistake because they need to draft a quarterback, and they're really just going to be delaying the inevitable, I believe. Joe Flacco, if he's starting quarterback for Denver, I believe they will be picking the quarterback in 2020. Maybe that's what they're going for as well. Look, it's not going to be the biggest crop of quarterbacks coming out in 2019. A lot of people looking to 2020. That's when you're going to have Tua Tagovailoa from Alabama coming out. He should be one of the top quarterbacks taken in the draft. You got a couple other guys as well. Maybe they're trying to look for that one. Maybe they're hedging their bets on 2020. Joe Flacco, now a Denver Bronco, traded away from the Baltimore Ravens. A big story as the NFL offseason already gets going here in full swing. Won't be official, of course, until March when the new league year begins. But right out of the gates here in the NFL offseason, boom, with a big move just like that. I don't think we thought that would happen just about a week and a half removed from the Super Bowl. John Elway making moves here right away for the Denver Broncos, trying to get them back to some of the winning ways and some of the winning success they've experienced here just 3-4 years ago. Have not been able to replace Peyton Manning yet since he's retired. Will Joe Flacco be the answer? We'll soon find out. Just getting started here on the Behind the Mic podcast, weekly podcast. Now, of course, we welcome in our audience who've been listening over for the past 6 months or so over on KABC Radio. It's great to be here on iHeartRadio. We're also on iTunes as well. Spotify now carries the Behind the Mic podcast in addition to other platforms as well. So we thank everyone who has helped to make the success of the podcast the best it can be to this point. We've got some other things in the works as well as far as guests we'll be having on over the course of the next several weeks. Also some other potential higher platforms for the show. There's some talk maybe about us going into maybe back to another radio format, a Monday through Friday. We'll see. At the moment right now, weekly podcasts, new episodes every week. Be sure to check out, if you haven't done so already, the new and improved BehindTheMicShow.com. From all of the interviews, all the podcasts, this is podcast episode number 147. We put them all up on there underneath the podcast section. Feel free to submit us any questions you have through our question section, through the inquiries that we take in. Everything you need for the show is at BehindTheMicShow.com. Coming up, going to talk a little bit about the Alliance of American Football, the San Diego Fleet, the closest team here in Los Angeles. How'd they do in week one? Who do they got coming up in week two? What's the quarterback situation look like? Mike Martz, how is he faring as head coach? We'll talk about that coming up on the other side. It's the Behind the Mic podcast. Brad Dallas guiding you through. Week one of the Alliance of American Football League, the inaugural season of this new professional league, is in the books. A couple takeaways. First off, the opening night game, which was in San Antonio this past weekend from the Alamo Dome. It was the visiting San Diego Fleet taking on the Commanders down there. And number one, I loved the hype and the build-up to this. The broadcast on CBS on national television, I thought, was fantastic. And it really got people excited on Instagram, social media. They really knew how to build up and start the presence and get people really amped about what they were doing here. The broadcast was no different than the Super Bowl as far as how CBS put it together and they presented it to a viewing audience. Good talent. Jamie Erdahl did the opening there down in the field with Kurt Warner. She also took care of sideline duties. You had Spiro Ditas up there in the booth with, I believe, Tiki Barber was up there, and I want to say Trent Green. The couple notches down on, they took one of the third or fourth team, if you will, of the CBS broadcast football team, and I thought they really did a phenomenal job overall just presenting it, and that was just number one off the bat. Two, the no kickoff. We knew there wasn't going to be kickoffs, but I don't think anything can really prepare you for that until you actually see it unfold for the first time. It was a little bit weird, I'm going to be honest. I wasn't a big fan of it. Now, maybe it'll grow on me, but for this past weekend, for seeing it for the first time, it was weird. And it just, there was a lot of euphoria and build up to this, a lot of excitement. But once we actually got to getting the game going and getting it underway, it was somewhat of an anticlimactic beginning, I thought, with no kickoff. We're so used to seeing it forever. It's been there. And then instead of the opening kickoff, we have the opening snap. Different. Maybe it's for the better of the sport. The NFL has to be monitoring this very closely. Just one of the aspects of the AAF that they'll be paying close attention to, I believe, here in this inaugural season. How does football perform with no kickoffs? We know it's been one of the leading causes of concussions in the game in recent years. They've started to really hone in and crack down on it, saying, look, if the concussion rate doesn't continue to go down even more so in the NFL over the next couple of years, it's going to be gone by the time the next CBA comes up for negotiations in 2021. What's it going to look like? It was a little weird for me, first time I saw it. Again, maybe it'll grow on me, but it was a little weird to begin the game without a kickoff. Quality was very good. The quality of football that we saw was very good this past weekend. I think it lived up to and exceeded all expectations for this opening week of the league. A lot of praise they got, too, from a lot of different media outlets. USA Today called the alliance, quote, quality football featuring a lot of young talent. We saw the interview right before the game in San Antonio last week. Bill Polian, who, of course, is leading up this AAF league, along with Charlie Ebersol, the son of the former chairman of NBC Sports, Dick Ebersol. Polian basically said that a ultimate goal for us in 5 to 10 years is to really be a feeder league, a developmental league for the NFL. You can see how they're taking appropriate strides from the get-go here to get to that point. Guys like Hines Ward coming in, being head of player development, bringing the first inaugural, if you will, game ball out on the field for the first snap. High-quality NFL former players, former executives involved in this is a huge home run. We figured that would be, but right now that is really showing that it's a huge home run for this team as they get things going in regards to that. A lot of people liking this. I was following the interaction on social media, on Instagram. People were excited from what they were seeing. It reminded them a little bit of the NFL prior to the last couple of years. The old NFL, a lot of hits defensively, a physical, tough type of game. You saw some of these defensive players really had a field day in week one. No one had a better performance, though, in week one than Steve Spurrier's Orlando Apollo squad, putting up 40 points against the Atlanta Legends. Not too bad. Not too shabby of a way to kick things off. The old ball coach, Stu got it down there, as you can see. I mean, I loved it. They were pulling out all kind of different plays. They ran a little Philly special, little Spurrier special, if you will. The Apollos. And how about all the fans, too? I was kind of wondering, heading into this, would we see a whole bunch of fans come out, kind of similar to what we saw in the inaugural XFL League back in 2001 when they came out for that first game in Las Vegas on NBC, came out in droves and did tailgating and participated in all the festivities leading up to the game outside the stadium and such. Would we see that in the Alliance League? The answer was yes in week 1, especially in that Legends Apollos game. Did you see so many of the fans out there? They were dressed up. They were ready to roll. This league is out of the gates strong. The San Diego Fleet here, like I mentioned earlier, the closest team to the Los Angeles area. Mike Martz is the head coach. They struggled a bit. They lost 15-6 to the Commanders on that opening night game on CBS, 15-6. They've switched up quarterbacks this week. It looks like they're going to have maybe a little bit of a different look. I'm going to be down at the game in San Diego. I'm excited to see what type of draw do they get at the old Qualcomm Stadium. What type of condition is that stadium like? What type of condition is it in at this point? How does the Fleet fare in their first home game, first professional football game in a couple of years in San Diego? So 4 games in the books through this opening week. As far as players that we know, the player I was looking forward to the most in week 1 was Christian Hackenberg. Didn't play very well for the Express in their opening week game against the Iron, that being Mike Singletary's team there in Birmingham, Alabama. They struggled a little bit. Christian Hackenberg, to me, is I was talking with someone the other day, and I said I really feel like he is comparable to a Jay Cutler type of quarterback. Now, Jay Cutler, the ultimate Jekyll and Hyde, and someone told me when I mentioned that to them that, Brad, that's giving him too much credit. Jay Cutler actually made a long NFL career out of being Jekyll and Hyde. That's true. That is true. But as far as someone who was so consistently inconsistent, I feel Hackenberg fits that description to a T. Really does. Hackenberg still trying to find his way. This was not the start he was looking for. Struggled a little bit. Can he get it back on track? We'll see. I think he's got, I don't know if it's pressure on him necessarily from the media or anyone outside that circle, but there is some pressure on him. There has to be at this point to try and up his performance and try and get to a level that maybe he can get back to the NFL. So far, I just don't think he's a professional quarterback. This good quarterback at times at Penn State. A lot of inconsistent play. Again, I think that's really what he's evolved into, consistently inconsistent play. So that stood out for me. Another thing there in week 1. Week 2 coming up, obviously, and we're going to see how the ratings do. They did very well on CBS. Very well on CBS, and they're going to look to obviously replicate that here with their TV contracts with the NFL Network. It's going to air a lot of different games. The Turner TNT as well will air a couple games of the Alliance of American Football League. Bleacher Report Live will get on the action later on in the season. They're not competing with the NFL. I think this league, I don't want to be too premature here. I think this league is here to stay. The Alliance of American Football kicking off here in 2019. The XFL to come next year in 2020. I thought originally when we heard there would be a reboot of the XFL, I thought for sure they would be the most popular secondary professional football league outside the NFL. I thought that would be easy. Even when we had talk and some whispers about another league starting up, even when the Alliance was announced they would be starting up, I still believed that they would have a lot more success than any other league. Again, it's too early, but I'm not so sure about that at the moment. I'm not so positive about it. The XFL, they want to be different from the NFL. They're trying to recreate the game of football. I'm curious to see what their package looks like when it rolls out next year. But until then, the Alliance off to a running start here in week 1. It's all about drawing people in with the head coaches. We talked about Spurrier, Mike Martz here with San Diego, Singletary in Birmingham, Alabama. They got some of the players too, and they got good quality. Again, XFL, the original XFL in 2001, they didn't have the name recognition with coaches or players. That was the beginning of the downfall for them. This Alliance League absolutely has that. They're off to a great start. I can't wait to see how it plays out over the next 9 weeks up to the championship at the end of April. That should roll in very nicely to the NFL draft. And then off and away we go from there. Yeah, they're going to have to compete a little bit with March Madness, but I think they're up to the challenge with that. And again, as long as the quality of play continues to be good over the next couple of weeks, people will stay engaged. I don't believe we're going to see a repeat of 50 million people tuning into the debut of the XFL on NBC, and then 5-6 weeks later having a really hard time even half filling XFL stadiums. I think it's the complete opposite here with the Alliance of American Football League. So we got a lot of chatter about that this week. I mentioned earlier a little golf here locally in the Los Angeles area over at Riviera in the Pacific Palisades. Genesis Open was supposed to be going on this week, and they got rained out here today. They got rained out over the last day or two with some of the practice rounds that were going on. The big news today, though, was not exactly what happened on the golf course or what potentially could be happening over the next couple of days if the weather cooperates throughout the weekend, but more so what went down with golfer Matt Kuchar and him undertipping his temporary caddy in his win in November. Not a good look. Not a good look. And quickly, my 2 cents on this is basically if you've worked in retail in your life, if you worked in the food service industry, if you have worked for different employers and especially jobs that involve you moving a lot on your feet, outside, inside, etc., you work hard for those tips and those wages. And to be under-tipped like this and really underappreciated in this sense, especially in the public eye, not a good look for Matt Kuchar. Not a good look at all. It just shows everyone saying he's just so out of touch, just not really up for what's going on right now, and really just struggling to make sense out of the situation here that has arisen. He's really struggling to make people to make sense out of this. They just really cannot wrap their head around this. Not a good look at all, and probably not the story that the PGA Tour would love to hear people talking about heading into this event this week. So that's the latest there with Kuchar. Tiger, it's been well documented. He has struggled at this event. Hasn't always been called the Genesis Open, but the event at Riviera here in February each year, he has struggled with mightily. I'm curious to see how he plays coming up during the weekend. Again, as long as the weather is able to come through and come out, as long as the clouds and the rain can go away, we can see some of that California sunshine again. How does Tiger look when, I'm just curious to see, we're about 8 weeks out, 7 weeks out, if you will, from Augusta. How does he look over there? Because we know he's only going to play in a couple more tournaments, maybe one or two others, until we see him at the Masters. Very curious to see how Tiger looks coming up this weekend if they're able to get in golf over at Riviera. How does he look? 80 career PGA Tour victories. Regardless of what happens over the next 7-8 weeks leading up to the Masters, he will absolutely be the favorite. No question about that. He will be the favorite to win at Augusta. Yes, it's Tiger versus the field. I know the field has improved, but has the field improved their game mentally in order to withstand a Tiger surge in a major? That remains to be seen. It's the Behind the Mic podcast. It's brought to you by Mental Minute Success Coaching. Do you want to improve and accomplish more in life? Do you want to gain clarity and focus? Well, Mental Minute Success Coaching designs a life, performance, and clear pathways that strengthen emotional skills, boost motivation, and promotes real change for accomplishing your goals. So why wait? Make every minute count by visiting mentalminutes.com now to invest in your success. Mental Minute Success Coaching is a custom creative programming that meets all individual needs. Your social, emotional, academic, athletic, and performance life will rise to new heights and change your pattern of success in life forever. Get started now at mentalminutes.com and invest in your success. That's mentalminutes.com. That's going to do it for this week. Back at it again next week. We will be releasing these Behind the Mic podcast each and every week coming up here for the foreseeable future. Keep up with everything we're doing at BehindTheMicShow.com. You can follow us on social media at BTM with Brad. A lot of great things to come here with the programming in 2019 and beyond. So great to have you with us. We hope to continue to entertain you, bring you a lot of great guests, have a lot of great laughs, and a lot of good times to come over the coming weeks. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Keep living the dream. I'll talk to you next week.